to have with us this afternoon Kathy Douglas, a recipient of the 2017 Pioneering Spirit Award for her contributions to the world of nursing. She filmed Nurses, If Florence Could See Us Now. Tell us, Kathy, a little bit about the film, why you did it.
Motivation for the film was really quite simple. We wanted to accomplish three things: help demonstrate to the world and help the world understand what nursing is, to remind nurses of their extraordinary work, and we wanted to celebrate this incredible profession.
It is really hard for people to understand the scope of nursing, the emotional part.
You know, one of the opening lines in the film is, it's hard to find a life that has not been touched by a nurse. And this is so true. I mean, that you can't find anyone from birth to death and everywhere in between. We're always touching people's lives. And yet people don't really think much about nursing until they need one of us. Our hope was to bring into the light of day and help people become more aware that this work is going on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all over the world.
Nursing is not a 9 to 5. Then we have to remember, as nurses, it's not about our inconvenience. You know, they're really being inconvenienced. They didn't plan on that to happen.
That's so true. Yeah, we were able to capture just extraordinary stories where nurses could talk about not just what it felt like to give care to a patient, but what it felt like to be a nurse. And I think it's really important for people to know there was no rehearsing, there was no practice. We just were able to sit down with nurses and have a heart-to-heart conversation, very authentic, very genuine. And I think that's what comes through in the stories.
Many times it brings tears to their eyes because it makes them recall a similar time that they went through those same feelings.
Right. It helps us understand that we're all in this together. There's a lovely young nurse who worked in pediatric oncology that we interviewed, and she said, told us that sometimes, you know, when you go home, you really can't talk about it because they just don't understand. And really the only people that understand the experiences that we have are our colleagues.
And they are very humbling experiences. Every nurse has a ton of those that they could talk about.
You know, I felt that up on the stage today. Getting that award was just so humbling. But in reality, there isn't one nurse in that room that couldn't come up on that stage and have incredible stories to tell.
Tell me, what has the response to the film been?
Well, you know, my favorite response was from a gentleman. We had had a big screening in Washington, D.C. for the American Nurses Association and all of the folks that work, you know, in policy. And one of the husbands of a nurse came up to me after the film and he said, "You know what, Kathy?" He said, "I've been supporting my wife as a nurse for 30 years, but I've never understood what she did until today."
You know, and for a husband to say that because he's lived with her, but that's right, there are just some things you can't explain.
You know, the most common response from nurses is, "Thank you for reminding me why I came into this profession." That while we want the public to know nursing, we want to remind nurses that their work is extraordinary. And we can forget. We can be very heady, we can be very scientific, we can be very compassionate at the bedside, but we do it every single day. And I think sometimes we lose that connection to why we came to this profession. We came here to help people. And when we actually see on the big screen examples of what we're doing, it helps us connect back to that purpose, why we're doing this.
When you see the real nurses, not the nurses on TV.
Yeah.
Those are not real nurses. And they first became nurses.
I actually started in healthcare in housekeeping. And I was cleaning rooms in hospitals and I watched the nurses. I would hear them call a code blue overhead and I'm like, I want to be there. What is that? So I just continued on my education and spent many years as a critical care nurse, mostly in surgical and trauma. And then I got drawn into technology. I think all critical care nurses know this too, we really like technology. I felt like the technology could be improved if people who really understood the work were on the design teams.
Yes.
And so I moved into the technology side of healthcare, and that's just been an extraordinary experience. Like, it's amazing where this career can take you as a nurse.
Exactly. Has grown so much. What do you think Florence would say if she could see the nursing profession today?
You've come a long way, baby.
Yeah. To get to where you've gone.
We've come a long way, but we're not done.
No.
We're not done. And if I could just say this, I think that healthcare needs us, nursing, now more than they ever have before. And this is not a time for us to be quiet or to just stay focused at the bedside. We've got so much power.
Yes.
We are the most trusted profession, and yet we don't use the strength of that voice to influence, I don't think, enough. And I think that if we're going to figure out how to fix healthcare, it has to come, nurses' voice has to be at that table. We've got to be there. We've got to be advocates for our patients. We've got to be advocates for ourselves. And we've got to be advocates for how healthcare is delivered.
I think the nurses are becoming stronger as they unite and speak out.
There's one story in the film. This nurse got a needle stick and she contracted HIV and hepatitis C. She went on to become president of the American Nurses Association. And what she was able to do is to take that really challenging situation that she got herself into. Her name is Karen Daly. This is such a hero. And within 1 year, she traveled the country. She got to Washington, D.C., and they made legislation that actually made it safer for nurses in 1 year. Just want to say this was just an emergency room nurse who ended up at the White House at the signing of legislation that actually made it more safe for nurses. So we really can make a difference.
Right.
There's examples everywhere.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing your story with us, and I hope more people can see the film.